Tonight, the province is scrambling to finish a major revamp of the National War Memorial ahead of a milestone event in July.
A setback for the National War Memorial Restoration Project. An important contract to build a tomb of the unknowns has been stripped from a Bishops Falls company.
We are terminating that contract. We are seeking a new supplier.
But officials are guaranteeing that this remembrance project will be ready for July 1st. That story coming up.
I'm a student. My main concern should be studying, but right now my main concern is, will I be able to pay rent? Will I be able to pay my groceries?
They will look for other methods to find the work and still stay a full-time student.
International students say they can't afford to work any less, but come January, it's part-time positions only.
City of St. John's is thrilled.
All in all, it's just a fantastic place to be.
It's the talk of the curling world.
After a 15-year absence, the Grand Slam of Curling is returning to St. John's, and organizers have high hopes the local boys will bring in the fans.
This is CBC Here and Now.
Good evening and welcome to Here and Now. There's been a setback in plans to build a Tomb of the Unknowns at the Newfoundland National War Memorial in St. John's. The government has stripped a Bishops Falls company of its contract, and time is ticking. Here and Now's Terry Roberts reports.
The infrastructure minister delivered the news this morning.
We are terminating that contract. We are seeking a new supplier, so that will deliver on time for July 1st.
This is Mark Brace of Bishops Falls, owner of the stone fabrication company Ocean Floor Granite, which has been struggling to stay afloat, not even connected to the power grid, relying on a generator for power. Last spring, government awarded the company a $100,000 contract to build a tomb at the National War Memorial. The tomb would be the final resting place for an unknown Newfoundland soldier who died in France during the First World War. It's the centerpiece of a $6 million refurbishment of the memorial, with the soldier's remains to be interred on July 1st during the 100th anniversary of the memorial. Brace was making progress on the tomb, but a government inspector recently shut down the operation, saying the electrical system was not up to modern codes. So with progress halted, the government has cut ties with Brace, but Abbott is promising that a tomb will be in place for July 1st.
Unfortunately, we're at a point, time is not on our side to continue with that contract. We have to meet a very specific deadline of July 1st, and as a result, we now have to source a new supplier, and which we've already made contact with several, and we'll be moving forward very shortly with a new supplier.
John Abbott says the scramble to find a new supplier will likely mean a higher cost for the tomb. Now that's on top of the more than $30,000 progress payment already made to Ocean Floor Granite, a payment for samples and materials that were never received.
The block wasn't quite long enough.
Mark Brace learned the government canceled his contract today when contacted by CBC News. He called the termination an insult to veterans and is threatening legal action.
I don't believe that there's going to be a tomb there, and if there is a tomb that will be put in place there, it won't have any Newfoundland rock. So to me, the fact that they're gonna stop me from finishing the project, and then they're gonna cut it on me altogether, it just it seems like a major wrongdoing inside of the government.
Brace said he could finish the tomb if he was allowed to use the generator, or if the government would pay the cost of connecting his business to the grid. That's not likely. The government is moving on.
Absolutely. We have no choice, so we will pull out all the stops to make sure that is done. That's our commitment, and that's where we have to be on July 1st.
While it will likely be supplied by a stone fabrication company from elsewhere in Canada, John Abbott says the Tomb of the Unknowns will still have some local content. The cover will be made from Labradorite. Terry Roberts, CBC News, St. John's.
A 63-year-old man died last night in a head-on collision on the Trans-Canada Highway near Norris Arm. It happened just after 7 o'clock. The RCMP say a transport truck and the SUV the man was driving collided. The man died at the scene. The transport truck driver was treated for what police are calling minor injuries. Well, Ottawa is giving the province more control over offshore wind developments. A new agreement signed today in Ottawa means the province will also get more money from these projects. Peter Cowan reports.
So far, all of the proposed wind projects in Newfoundland and Labrador are focused on building turbines on land. But both the federal and provincial governments are getting ready for that interest to expand offshore.
With world-class wind resources and considerable geographic advantages, Newfoundland and Labrador has the potential to build a thriving offshore wind sector that will be well positioned to support both the growing demand for clean electricity and a globally competitive hydrogen export industry.
Today's agreement makes it clear Newfoundland gets to set the rules and get the royalties for projects built close to shore. It hands over control to any development that happens in various bays and coves all around Newfoundland, but nothing in Labrador, to the province. Any projects here will be treated the same as if they were projects on land. That could make it easier for companies to later expand any onshore projects to the offshore if they need to. The plan is for anything outside that area to be under the control of the offshore energy regulator, just like an oil or gas project. But the federal Conservatives are holding up the legislation to make that happen, much to the frustration of the Liberal minister for this province.
The world is going towards lower emissions. It is going green. It is going towards renewables. So we can sit on our hands and let those industries be built in other countries, letting other workers in other countries get those good jobs, or we can act.
Any projects built here will likely produce energy for elsewhere, using Newfoundland's strong winds to produce green hydrogen and ammonia shipped off to power industries in Europe and beyond. But it could conflict with other uses like fishing.
I never said that we would develop all of them. I never said how the consultation process will go with fishermen or Indigenous partners alike. We will have a healthy, respectful consultation process. Today is the first step in recognizing that these areas are ours. These are Newfoundlanders and Labradorians. We will own them, we will regulate them, and we will reap the economic benefits of them. That said, there's still a lot of work to do to ensure that we protect the fishermen.
The Fisheries Union says that protection will be important. It's worried that offshore wind projects could hurt important commercial fisheries. It says new developments can't come at the cost of existing resources. Peter Cowan, CBC News, St. John's.
Well, Newfoundland and Labrador Health Services is moving ahead with a plan to build 2 urgent care clinics on the Northeast Avalon. A request for proposals has been issued. The clinics are expected to reduce pressure on emergency departments. The RFP calls for 1 clinic in the west end of St. John's and another in the east end of the city. Last March, the province said it was looking to build a single large urgent care clinic in the capital city. But this fall, the province canceled its request for proposals because all bids were significantly over budget. Back in October, the health minister said the province still aims to open an urgent care clinic in St. John's next spring. Well, international students are running out of time. At the end of this month, a temporary work policy will come to an end, and that means they'll only be permitted to work off campus for 20 hours each week. It's already causing some to feel the financial strain. Here Now's Arlette Lazarenko has more.
Ishak Ibtida is feeling stressed.
The whole semester, I was anxious, even if I was in class. I was thinking that next time, when I'm trying to get something, I'm trying to buy groceries, I'm not sure how to manage that. I'm not sure how to manage this thing with academics.
And his stress isn't about schoolwork. Thanks to a temporary policy brought in by the federal government last year, international students have been allowed to work more than 20 hours each week. Ibtida's days are well structured, split between his studies as a business student at MUN and working full-time at a software company. But that all ends December 31st.
I'm a student. My main concern should be studying. But right now, my main concern is, will I be able to pay rent? Will I be able to pay my groceries when the limit is 20 hours?
He isn't alone. The University Students' Union says many worry how they'll cope with rising costs.
Sometimes when international students come to study here, their parents do support them, but parents don't plan for inflation. Parents don't plan for a pandemic. Parents don't plan for a lot of things. So that money may not be ready for a lot of international students, and they may not have the means to support themselves.
The union says making the switch from full-time to part-time means many international students will lose their jobs altogether.
So, many international students will be jobless. Many of them won't be able to find the positions that they're looking for, and many will be kicked off their job just because of a regulatory switch within their study permit environments.
If I'm not working full-time, what they're going to do with the position? They need me 8 hours. So that's a weird situation for a lot of students who actually got good jobs meanwhile because they are able to work full-time. They have big companies hired them and they have good positions right now.
Chowdhury says it's not realistic to expect international students to abide by the 20-hour work week. They can't afford to, and he worries that would make them vulnerable.
They will look for other methods to find the work and still stay a full-time student. And so that will give rise to under-the-table sort of arrangements, making a very, very bad work experience and a very exploitative work experience for international students.
The Federal Immigration Department said in an email statement that it's evaluating the policy and its impact. Meanwhile, students like Ibtida are left to wait and brace for whatever financial challenges the new year may bring. Arlette Lazarenko, CBC News, St. John's.
Another lovely day for eastern areas of the province. Anyway, we saw some sunshine this morning. Again, those flurries have developed on the west coast as well. We've got a bit of a trough that's still working its way through, sinking south at the moment, and we can really see that flurry activity on the west coast. Now, the snow squall watch that was issued earlier has since ended. The flurries definitely getting a little less organized, but as we head through the next couple of days, we've got an area of low pressure starting to take shape offshore, and that is going to retrograde. That means it's going to move towards the coast of Labrador, and it is going to bring some windy weather to a good chunk of the island as well as Labrador, and also some significant snowfall as we head through the next couple of days. Environment Canada has a winter storm warning in place from Nain through to Makkovik, and like I said, not only is this going to bring some snow, but also some windy conditions. We'll talk all about that when I come back in a little bit.
The plight of Newfoundland and Labrador's food banks and the people who need them has made it to the House of Commons. This after a number of CBC stories about people struggling to survive against the rising cost of living. Those reports led to a back and forth between the NDP and the Prime Minister. Here's how it started.
Mr. Speaker, food prices aren't going down. A record number of Canadians are turning to food banks for their meals. Before the doors open at Bridges to Hope Food Bank in St. John's, there's already a lineup waiting to collect food hampers. Meanwhile, big grocers like Sobeys, who was here yesterday, are seeing heaps of excess profit, all while offering a nickel to its employees. The Liberals are failing to lower food prices. When are they going to crack down on the corporate greed that is driving Canadians to food banks?
Well, Newfoundland and Labrador is one of the most food insecure places in the country. 23% of households experienced hunger last year, and demand at some food banks has tripled over that same time period. We also have the highest percentage of seniors using food banks. Meantime, the top executives of major grocers are testifying in Ottawa about their plans to stabilize food prices. Here's Prime Minister Justin Trudeau responding to the NDP.
Our affordability legislation will empower the Competition Bureau to hold grocers accountable and prioritize consumers' interests. The fall economic statement proposes further amendments to the Competition Act to crack down on predatory pricing, to better respond to anti-competitive mergers, and more. We're ensuring that Canadians have more competitive options, and we're limiting excess profits by corporations at the expense of Canadians.
Well, for the first time in more than 15 years, the Grand Slam of Curling will return to St. John's. The popular curling event features the top teams from both the women's and men's sides from all over the globe. But a big reason for coming back to St. John's is a local curling team. Jeremy Eaton has that story.
City of St. John's is thrilled that we will host the Grand Slam of Curling event in 2024 right here.
Standing in front of the ice under the wraparound banner advertising the event, the mayor of St. John's welcomed the international curling crowd back to St. John's. The Mary Brown Centre may have had a different name back then, but it's no stranger to large curling events. In 2017, Team Gushu won its first Brier title here in dramatic fashion.
It'll mean a lot to us as a team to be able to represent our sponsors, family, friends, and supporters in front of, hopefully, another packed house.
The hope is that this guy and this guy bring the crowds back to watch.
It's the talk of the curling world. Everyone knows that when they come here, the place is going to be packed. It's going to be loud, and that's the most fun as competitive athletes, to play in front of great fans who support the game.
With 32 teams, it's around 130 top curlers in the world that will be here.
And the boss of the Grand Slam of Curling knows the local lads will be a big draw.
Obviously popular here, but anywhere we go across Canada, they are the most popular team. Like, people cheer so loud for Team Gushu anywhere we go.
The event was last here in 2008, but more recently in Paradise and Conception Bay South.
They've been so well received. The people are phenomenal. The curlers love it. The crew loved George Street. So all in all, it's just a fantastic place to be.
The top 16 women's teams will come, as well as the top 16 men's teams. Lots of players, coaches, and fans to follow, meaning the city will be sweeping in some spin-off cash.
It's significant. I mean, when you take into account the hotel rooms, the restaurant business, at a time of year that it's a bit slow. It's just prior to the Christmas season. You're just coming out of fall, so in that shoulder season, it's a really important economic boost for the city.
Both organizers and Team Gushu are looking forward to the event, and the hope is that the stands here on the ice behind me will fill up with fans, and people looking to get those tickets can buy them as of Friday. Jeremy Eaton, CBC News, St. John's.
Well, the Bay of Islands Search and Rescue Group has a new tool they hope will help save lives. The Western Snow Riders in Corner Brook raised $15,000 in 2 months to buy a new rescue sleigh. It's a major upgrade to the old search and rescue machine. The Snow Riders made the donation in Corner Brook last night.
Well, the best thing about this machine behind us, when we go and do a rescue with somebody, they're out in the elements. We got to try to keep them warm. We spend a lot of time and effort keeping that person warm to transport them to the highway. This here piece of equipment got its own built-in heaters. It got its lights and everything like that there. So trying to combat shock with an injured person is keeping them, treating the injuries and keeping them warm. It's a more comfortable machine. It keeps the person in the elements. It keeps them warm and dry. Plus, you know, it warms the person for us. So that's one less thing we've got to do or look after, right? We hope we never ever got to use it, but you know, we use a rescue wagon probably 5 times out of run of a winter for sure. Right? So this here, and like it could be something that, you know, and best thing about this one here, we can use it all year round because it have got a wheel system that we can transfer over in the summertime. So this is a 12-month of a year rig, not just for in the wintertime.
Snowmobilers tend to ride, you know, far away from civilization, far away from the nearest highway and an ambulance, waiting ambulance. So having a proper piece of equipment for patient care and transport where they can stay warm, they can stay comfortable, because sometimes it's 20, 30-kilometer ride back to civilization for them. So we felt it was very important for snowmobilers, but we also recognize how it's going to benefit all outdoor enthusiasts.
This here is 150% better than what we could do before. So we can help the person a lot better. We can stabilize the person a lot better. We can cut down on all their injuries, you know, because this here is a way more comfortable ride, and we can help treat the person, you know, from hypothermia or shock or dry them or keep them dry. So this is going to be a really big thing for us.
Sometimes, when things get modern, people kind of forget about handicrafts and things like that. It's so much easier sometimes to buy things.
The Holidays in the Harbour Festival takes place this weekend in Trinity Bay North. I'll tell you about its centerpiece, a crocheted Christmas tree. That's the story later on Here and Now.
Well, the winds are going to pick up over the next couple of days. Some significant snow to parts of Labrador as well. I'll break the full forecast down for you coming up.
It's a bizarre cult film.
Love, murder, mental illness, Newfoundland independence.
There's a sickness or darkness in there that's like a fishhook in your abdomen while you're laughing.
We were the very first feature film produced in Newfoundland.
And was the most insane style to make a film that you could imagine.
We had a lot of people who had never acted before. That's not necessarily a great idea.
People made movies in Hollywood. People didn't make movies in Newfoundland. Fasten your seatbelts and come along for the ride.
And that's all I can say, I think. I don't know.
Well,
Time for a look at the weather. And Ashley, oh, it was a cold one out there today, but not nearly as cold as in Labrador.
Yes, no, that's for sure. This morning, certainly those temperatures chilly as we were walking out the door into the minus single digits for a good chunk of the island, but up across Labrador, bottomed out at about minus 16. And the temperature has been warming all through the day. And we're going to say goodbye to these cold temperatures for a little while. But if we take a look at where we sat today as our daytime high, around minus 8 in Lab City, those temperatures as you head towards the coast are a bit warmer, and then across the island even still into the minus single digits, minus 2 for St. John's this afternoon. But that is about 5 degrees colder than where we should be sitting this time of year. And we're really not going to move a whole lot as far as those temperatures are concerned moving forward. But it does look like in the long-range forecast that we do have a bit of a warm-up. Taking a look at the satellite right now, we still have those onshore flurries, definitely looking a lot more squally this afternoon. But that is not the case anymore. We still do have those flurries around there, bringing the road conditions down a little bit. But as we head through the night tonight, we're still looking at that chance of some flurries, but yes, they will be less defined. Now that snow will still work its way towards the northern peninsula as well, so expect a dusting tonight. And then other than that, the flurries will become a bit more scattered across the island, and the further east you go, the better the weather. We should actually see some partly cloudy skies tonight. And other than that, not a whole lot happening, just the chance, pretty much just the chance of flurries across the board, but nothing super significant. We're looking at a low near minus 14 tonight in Lab City, and then towards the coast, those temperatures in the minus single digits. That's the story across the island as well, except through central, where you will see those temperatures dip a little bit. Minus 11 or minus 12 will be the overnight lows for you. Heading through the day tomorrow, that trough is going to continue to track further east across the province, sparking some flurries or some light snow through the afternoon, particularly all along the northeast coast. So through the afternoon hours, you could see some deteriorating conditions if these flurries do develop. And then they're eventually going to head towards the northern portion of the Avalon as we get around the supper hour tomorrow. This area of low pressure going to start to bring some snow up across portions of Labrador as well, and the winds will pick up. So if you're planning on heading out tomorrow, there is the annual tree lighting at the Confederation Building. So if you're planning on heading out to check that out, again, there is that chance of some flurry activity. Temperatures around minus 1. But those winds will be gusting anywhere from 40 to 60 kilometers per hour. So just keep that in mind. That means wind chills will be a tad cooler. So definitely bundle up if you are planning on heading out. Those winter storm warnings are in place for the northern portion of Labrador. The bulk of the precipitation or that snow will move in overnight on Thursday into Friday morning. And this will be the weather maker as we head through the day on Friday. Now, it does look like the snow will eventually taper off. It'll likely taper to drizzle into the afternoon on Friday along the coast. Some milder temperatures, but that snow machine certainly kicking in on the west coast through the day on Friday as well. So definitely if you have any travel plans, you're going to want to keep that forecast in mind. Now, how much snow are we talking about? Through tonight, not a whole lot, just a trace, light accumulations likely. But tomorrow is really when we'll see that snow. Higher elevations on the coast. We'll also see the west coast. We could be talking about 20 to 30 centimeters of snow, and that's the case across Labrador here. You can see so in some of the higher elevations, though, anywhere from 60 plus centimeters is certainly possible. Temperatures tomorrow will sit into the minus single digits. Again, those gusty northwest winds still possible, generally between minus 1 and about minus 3 through the day. Still going to see the peaks of sun through the day as well. And then up across Labrador, as those winds pick up, it is not going to be a nice evening, and that's the case towards the coast. So let's look at your forecast. We'll look ahead to the long range when I come back.
Thanks, Ashley. Well, there's a collision of traditions on the Bonavista Peninsula where there's a Christmas tree paying tribute to the Granny Square. It's part of the Holidays in the Harbor Festival in Trinity Bay North. Here Now's Troy Turner brings us the story from there.
Hooks and loops, chains, contrasting colors of yarn. There's plenty of crocheting around the Bonavista Peninsula as volunteers stitch together a new style of Christmas tree.
I think a lot of this is preserving like some of the traditional arts and crafts, and obviously we don't want to lose that. And sometimes, when things get modern, people kind of forget about handicrafts and things like that. It's so much easier sometimes to buy things, but I love that it's being preserved and it's getting the people to come out and like interact with each other.
They're known as granny squares, and there are dozens of them around this 12-foot tree in Port Union. It features work by people who've crocheted for years and others, like Trish Rogers, who are new to the craft.
A lot of people my age even don't do a lot of knitting and crochet. And I have very fond memories of my grandparents doing that. And I felt bad that I couldn't pick it up when I was a kid. And I guess I'm trying to get some of it back as an adult. Plus, I just really like making things.
It's all part of a Christmas festival this weekend. Ahead of that, organizers put out a call for granny squares, and the people answered.
We posted on social media, and between the Coker Foundation and Recreation, everybody shared, and the response was overwhelming. We had so many people bringing in squares. It was unreal.
The crocheted squares have been coming from everywhere. They'll use extras to wrap smaller trees.
The response was overwhelming. We even had an 11-year-old girl from Sackville, Nova Scotia, crochet a square and send in to us.
The crocheted Christmas tree will be a centerpiece for the Holidays in the Harbor Festival, which takes place this weekend in partnership with the town of Trinity Bay North. Troy Turner, CBC News, Port Union.
The way in which fossil fuels are being mentioned with a lot of clarity in the text.
A local eye at the global COP28 conference. I'll connect with a MUN prof who's on the ground in Dubai to hear more about plans to phase out fossil fuels.
A season of giving, a season of kindness. Let's make the season kind for those in need. CBC is helping support local food banks this holiday season. Visit cbc.ca/bekind to find out how you can help.
As thousands of people gather in Dubai to discuss climate change, a Memorial University professor is also there bringing a Newfoundland and Labrador perspective to some of the meetings about phasing out fossil fuel use. Angela Carter joins us now. So it's day 7 at COP28. How is the conference going so far?
So my favorite moment to date so far during the Conference of the Parties has been a meeting that was arranged by a former student, actually, with the least developed country negotiators. So I had an opportunity to meet with people who, for in some cases over 2 decades, have been working to draw attention to how it is that states, the poorest states in the world, are most vulnerable to the climate crisis and what exactly they need and deserve from developed states like Canada. And so it's one thing, I mean, I know the data well about the fact that there's over 3 billion people who daily live in situations that are vulnerable to the climate crisis, and I'm aware of what that means. But to hear people give voice to that, the trauma of climate crisis in their communities, is really something else. You know, it really brings to life the data. So that was what made the greatest impression for me during COP so far.
And the new Loss and Damages Fund announced at COP28 is meant to help the countries most vulnerable to climate change. Can you talk about that?
So this has been a long time coming. Least developed countries have been asking, demanding this for, in some cases, 2 decades. Finally, at last year's Conference of the Parties, there was a movement toward the establishment of the fund. It was just announced this year, actually just a couple of days ago, right here in Dubai. And we have early contributions to that fund now that are coming in. It's not enough. The least developed country organizers were very clear with me that more money has to come to the table. They need it on a timeline. They need to know when it's coming, and it's got to be operationalized in a way that gets the money to the communities that are needed, that need it the most. So yes, that is a big win. The other piece, of course, and this is one that I'm watching really closely given my research, is the way in which fossil fuels are being mentioned with a lot of clarity in the text. So these are the 2 things that I'm paying close attention to.
And of course, the future of fossil fuels is something this province is especially interested in because we rely so heavily on revenues from the oil and gas industry. What are some of the big messages from this conference about fossil fuels?
So here at these meetings, coming from the global scientists that are doing this work, there is absolute clarity that the climate crisis is a crisis of oil and gas and coal. And there is no way that we can stay within climate safety, so that 1.5 degree of warming, there's no way that we can do it unless we stop new production from coming online, so no new production of oil or gas or coal. And in fact, we need to wind down existing production, the fields that are already in production. That is now a scientific fact, and it's making its way into the policy documents here at the Conference of the Parties. Last year, there were references in the final text to unabated fossil fuels, to coal production. So that was a start of getting fossil fuels mentioned in the final text. But here I am hearing loud and clear, for example, from the Beyond Oil and Gas Alliance, how negotiators are pushing hard to make sure that oil and gas and coal, any kind of production, needs to be phased out, not phased down, but phased out. And you're right, this has enormous repercussions for a province like Newfoundland and Labrador that is moving in the opposite direction, wants to actually expand. And in some cases, we hear from policy documents about doubling oil production to 2030. That's not aligned with the science. It's also not aligned with the market realities, new economic evidence that we have about oil demand peaking before 2030. So yeah, I'm here, I'm in Dubai, I'm meeting global colleagues, researchers, policymakers, but I'm thinking about Newfoundland and Labrador every moment. Are we prepared for the changes ahead of us? Not yet, but it doesn't mean that we can't start making those changes now. The case that is so, I think, important with it brings out to me a lot of clarity for the Newfoundland and Labrador case is the case of Denmark. So I had some conversations with Danish colleagues yesterday, and what they demonstrated in their country, major oil and gas producer, lots of revenues from oil, lots of jobs from oil, just like Newfoundland and Labrador. That country saw the writing on the wall early that oil demand was going to peak. They saw that some of their own fields were starting to decline. They noticed that they weren't getting the same kinds of bids in their offshore as they used to. That's happening in our province right now. We're not getting companies bidding on parcels that are out there. So what they decided to do was work with the labor community, so labor unions, workers' organizations, with firms, government, and community, and craft a whole new path forward. For them, it was offshore wind. And now, I have the evidence and the research that shows that now we have more jobs in Denmark that are related to the renewable sector than there were in oil and gas. So basically, they have transitioned oil workers to renewable energy workers. That's the story for Newfoundland and Labrador. That's where our future lies, because anything else means we're leaving ourselves vulnerable to a crash out. We've already experienced that in the province. Now it's time for proactive planning.
Well, Angela Carter, I know you have a busy schedule over there, and I appreciate you making some time for us.
Thank you so much for being interested in this topic. Have a great day out there.
She's gritty and always wants the goal. Like, she's the person for Canada who, if they need a goal, that's who they're relying on.
Well, they didn't call her Captain Fantastic for nothing. Coming up, local soccer players reflect on the lasting legacy of Christine Sinclair.
They're making big investments in ocean research, all in the name of family. Watch for Love and Money, Sunday at 11:30 and Monday at 7.
The Bank of Canada is standing pat on its trend-setting interest rate, holding it at 5%. It's the third time in a row the bank has held the rate steady. It says there is encouraging evidence that higher rates are restraining spending and helping bring inflation down. Canada's economic growth has slowed considerably over the past year, and inflation is now running at 3.1%. The bank says it's willing to continue rate hikes if inflation moves up again. Analysts, though, widely expect it will start lowering rates as early as next spring. Well, the flags in front of Polytechnique Montreal are flying at half-mast today as the school pays tribute on the anniversary of the 1989 massacre. On this day, 34 years ago, 14 young women were murdered in a mass shooting targeting women on campus. It was Canada's deadliest mass shooting at the time. Representatives from the school and student associations wore white ribbons today and laid wreaths on the memorial plaque at the school. A minute of silence followed. Legendary writer, producer, and show creator Norman Lear has died at the age of 101. His TV work in the 1970s set him apart with Sanford and Son, The Jeffersons, Maude, and All in the Family.
All I gotta tell you is I want the chair back here where it was, right where it was.
Lear says one of TV's most iconic couples, Archie and Edith Bunker, was based on his own parents. Lear won 4 consecutive Emmys and went on to win 2 Peabody Awards. A private service will be held in the coming days. And after playing her final match, Canadian soccer legend Christine Sinclair says she hopes she's left an impression on the sport.
I knew I didn't want to play in Paris, but wanted to give the World Cup one more shot. And then with how the World Cup went, I was like, okay, we need to qualify for Paris. And then it's been kind of perfect, have 4 kind of send-off games. And I'm good, the team's in great hands, and I'm looking forward to vacation.
Well-deserved, for sure. The soccer star got a send-off worthy of her illustrious career last night in BC at the temporarily renamed Christine Sinclair Place. Sinclair represented Canada 331 times over 20-plus years, was named the country's Soccer Player of the Year 14 times, and has scored more goals than anyone else in the world, male or female. Sinclair inspired a generation of young Canadian soccer players, and while she was playing her final game last night, the St. John's Under-17 All-Star team was named Youth Team of the Year by the province's Soccer Association. Some of them dropped by the morning show studio earlier today to talk about Sinclair's legacy.
On her night, in her home, Christine Sinclair's final international appearance ends with a victory.
As a soccer player, especially like a girl growing up through the sport, Christine Sinclair is someone that you know from the day you start. So to see her, like, she's been playing on the women's national team her full life. So now the fact that she's done with it is something that's a little bit different to think about.
Do you remember, Lucy, when you first became aware of Christine Sinclair, for example?
Well, obviously, she started playing soccer in like 2000, so I wasn't even alive. But growing up, you just always heard the name. Like, she was such an amazing player and role model for all girls around Canada. And she really made an impact to the game. And I feel like everyone knows her name and like just has been so inspired by her through the years.
On our team, everyone kind of looks up to a player. And like everyone has their own playing style and everything. And like the style of play that she plays and like everything like that, you kind of like play off of it. Like you kind of use it to inspire yourself in the game. And I feel like a couple girls on our team kind of looked up to her in that way.
Tell us about her style of play and what stood out to you.
She's a goal scorer, so she has 190 international goals, which is the most of any player, male or female. So she's gritty and always wants the goal. Like she's the person for Canada who, if they need a goal, that's who they're relying on.
Christine Sinclair to finish it. Is it in? Oh, you bet it's in. Captain Fantastic does it again for Canada.
She's an attacker, she's a striker, and I know from experience I'm also a striker, so she's definitely been someone I look up to a lot. Her play is like she's very aggressive and forward, and she's always looking to attack, and I've really taken inspiration from that because that's where I play on the field, and I think I like her style of play a lot.
On the field is one thing, but some of the work that Christine Sinclair has done for women in sport off the field is huge too, right? I mean, how have some of her off-field plays inspired you?
I saw a video of Jessie Fleming talking about Christine Sinclair, and it was something about how she had just dropped a pair of cleats off at her door, and it was like kind of just explaining how Christine is like, she doesn't ask for recognition, she just does nice things for everyone on her team. And I feel like that helped build the soccer community in Canada when you're looking up to her that way.
She also does a big thing with pay equity towards women and male within soccer, and has been like a supporter of Project 8, the women's soccer league that she's bringing to Canada. Well, not her, but she's helping support and promote.
And when you've got an icon like Christine Sinclair in the sport right now, how do you think that kind of changes the conversation or even ups the profile for people that are thinking about getting into the sport?
I can remember in grade 5, I had to do a project on a hero, and I chose Christine Sinclair. And in grade 5, I've only been playing soccer for probably, like competitively, 2 or 3 years. So it just goes to show how she creates such an impact on you so young. She's a name that everybody recognizes. It's a household name across Canada, even probably across the world.
Sinclair definitely made an impression. And Soccer Canada has been collecting letters from coast to coast for Sinclair as a tribute to one of the country's best athletes. And as we head to break, we want to leave you with a bit of that.
So as we get ready to say the goodbye we wish we never had to face, there are a few things we wanted you to know.
That because of you,
we all stand a little taller and a little closer together than we ever did before.
that because of you,
we know that no dream should ever sound too crazy to any young Canadian.
That because of you,
we can call ourselves
world champions.
In this game where they used to say we didn't belong.
So on behalf of all of us,
thank you, Christine. Merci, Christine.
Haichka, Christine.
Thank you, Christine.
Thank you, Christine.
right, so time for a look at the long range. It's Wednesday already. It feels like this week is going by pretty quickly.
It certainly is.
So we get to look ahead to
Friday.
the weekend.
Yeah, we're already looking ahead to the weekend. It is going to be a busy weekend weather-wise, depending on where you are, but particularly for the north coast of Labrador. Let's take a look at what's happening. So that area of low pressure is going to stick around and bring snow starting tomorrow, really ramping up Thursday evening with some of the heaviest snowfall. But as we get into Friday morning, some models pointing at the fact that we'll likely see some drizzle or transition through to rain along the coast, and that's because we're going to see some of that milder air associated with that as well. So if you're by the coast, your snowfall amounts will likely be less, but still talking about significant amounts, 20, 30, maybe even 40 centimeters, definitely in the higher elevations, but certainly going to see some significant snowfall amounts with this. Now, most of Labrador will be seeing that snow through the day on Friday, with the exception of Lab West. That won't really happen. It should, depending on how close it gets, should stay just to the east of you. Otherwise, we're looking at those winds ramping up across the island as well. Snow, the story for the west coast, but the northern peninsula, again, temperatures are going to warm up, so this will likely transition through to rain. And really along the northeast coast through your Friday afternoon. Temperatures will be hovering around 0 or a little bit below for a good chunk of the island, except for the northern peninsula, like I said, where temperatures will hover around 2 degrees, and that will be the story for the coast of Labrador as well. Temperatures in Lab City will be the coldest at about -11. And you're going to see some sunshine through the day on Friday, like I mentioned there. So this system will stick around through Saturday, that warmer air moving in as well. At this point, looking like temperatures will stay on the plus side, so things will be rain through the day. We'll start to see some clearing out across Labrador as well as the afternoon rolls through, and then some more clouds will move in for those of you in the west, but clearing out just in time for the evening hours, and then eventually even into Sunday, it looks like at this point. So temperatures, like I said, 1 to about 4 or 5 degrees across the island, hovering around 0 or about +2 for southeastern portions of Labrador. Still chilly in Lab City, but some sunshine through the afternoon with your temperature near -15. Long range forecast, keeping up with these temperatures, and really at this point, models pointing at a dramatic warm up by Monday. Could be talking about 9, maybe even 10 degrees through the day, and that is going to bring some rain and potentially some windy conditions. So we're going to keep an eye on that one. For central Newfoundland, similar warm up, 11 degrees, 9 for western Newfoundland. That could change within a couple of degrees, but at this point it is looking like a pretty significant warm up. That is well above where we should be sitting this time of year. Same thing for eastern portions of Labrador as well. Likely see temperatures up in the double digits on the plus side of the mercury. Warming up for western Labrador as well, but still staying below 0 with that potential for some flurries or light snow. Our shot today is of Walter.
Oh,
and Walter is enjoying a moody sky in Tor Bay. Michelle shared this lovely shot with me. I had to share it with you as well. Thank you so much for that. If you have any weather photos you'd like to share with us, you can send them to my Facebook page, but the best place is to email them to nlphotos@cbc.ca.
Oh, so cute. I wish we could see Walter's face a bit better, but definitely is a moody sky there.
It is, yes.
Yeah, great shot. Thank you so much. I love that name, Walter. I love dogs who have like human names. Yeah, I had a dog named Henry once.
Oh, yeah. Cute. Yeah, that's a good name.
All right, well, that is it for us on this Wednesday evening. Thank you so much for spending part of your night with us.
Good night.